Alright, so it's time. 2023 Modern Dragon Ball Super Goku and Infinite Frontier Superman. Let's get into who would actually win in a battle. Death Battle had a lot to say, but they left out a lot and frankly took multiple things way out of context for the characters. For those wondering, we will assume that Superman has his feats from the standard versions of Golden Age, Silver Age, or Pre-Crisis as some call it, Post-Crisis, New 52, and Rebirth up to the current 2023 comics. Now I know that Screw Attack included Dragon Ball Heroes Goku in their analysis, however I will be opting to use post-Tournament of Power anime Goku alone in my final analysis, to avoid mashing together continuities like they did. I will, however, cover the mistakes they made relating to Heroes and the manga version of Goku, so don't worry, they will be talked about. First, let's get into debunk mode and set the record straight for some questionable calls made by Screw Attack. They chose to estimate DC's large size of their universe based on its expansion rate of 10 trillion light-years a second to claim Superman was stronger with universe-busting feats. The fact is, the Dragon Ball universe is literally stated to be infinite according to official guides such as Daisenshu and other sources such as Koyama. And 3D sizes don't really matter at the end of the day anyway when you're destroying timelines. So the size of the DC universe doesn't even come into play at the end of the day, and if it did, it doesn't beat Dragon Ball's infinite size universe anyway. Screw Attack also completely ignored most of Dragon Ball's higher layers of reality and scaling. They never brought up the subspace, which is described as being beyond the very concepts of space and time, yet holds dimensional structures like the Room of Spirit and Time and the Seguro space, and transcends time itself. This inherently implies it's not just an inferior zero-dimensional structure, but a qualitatively superior structure to all spatial and temporal dimensions. They didn't bring up anything about Dr. Slump scaling, which as you can see in my previous video, is part of the Dragon Ball cosmology and story, and contains higher layers of reality that view the lower ones as fiction, even having an endless hierarchy of reality-fiction transcendences where Aurelia is shown to be holding the manga page she just came out of, with a lower reality version of her doing the same in that page, and so on ad infinitum. They also didn't touch or even mention Beat's world that views the Dragon Ball and Dr. Slump worlds as fiction, or other higher Dragon Ball hero worlds like the Charisma Mission world. It's a very incomplete analysis of the Dragon Ball cosmology and scaling to say the least. Screw Attack also dropped the ball in regards to talking about the Dimensional Domain technique. Dimensional Domain literally cripples Superman by automatically reducing his stamina to nothing and placing him in an immobilized state after breaking his stamina from any action. Having resistance to the Doomsday virus, the Hollow Man draining his life force, or energy drain of other kinds does not equal resistance to your stamina being passively reduced to nothing instantly like Dimensional Domain does. That's not a virus, energy drain, or life force drain. That's like saying a fire Pokemon resists all status conditions because it's immune to burn. It's just silly. Screw Attack also forgot to include the fact that Goku, while training for the Saiyans on King Kai's planet, received the equivalent of several thousand years of training on Earth. So while most people agree Goku has superior skill, but people argue Superman has more experience to have battled for thousands of years, Goku actually has the equivalent of thousands of years of intense training with one of the greatest masters in the universe by the time he fights Nappa and Vegeta. So in terms of practical experience, you could argue Goku equals Superman or even wins in that category. Given those thousands of years worth of training are just the start of his training in Dragon Ball Z. Also, the World Forger feat doesn't apply. First off, Mixie states Superman can only even survive in the 6th dimension from being given 5th dimensional energy for years by Mr. Mixie. Also, he still needs help just to open a portal into the 6th dimension, blatantly showing he doesn't have the power to do it himself normally. And Batman actually assists in moving all those suns closer so Superman can fly through them in a row over and over again to get a massive buff, which allows him to knock over the World Forger with a sucker punch, not even actually knocking him out. Superman even says that not only does he feel like himself again after the sun dips, but more than himself, showing it's beyond his normal power. He in no way scales to that level normally, as he admits. So using the World Forger feat as his base power doesn't even work, since it was very situational and required help. It would be like using Universe Tree amped Goku, where Goku absorbed the energy of the complete Universe Tree to beat Fu, but could never do it alone under regular circumstances. Now one more thing that needs to be mentioned about the World Forger is that some people try to claim Superman's amp that he got applies to his Infinite Frontier form, since he claims to be stronger than ever before in his Infinite Frontier form. This, however, in my opinion is speculative, since his amp state is not a normal state that he has access to. Assuming that he scales to every one-off amp he has ever gotten is a little bit dishonest and inconsistent with his consistent showings for Infinite Frontier, in my opinion. With his consistent showings for Infinite Frontier not being anywhere near his World Forger or Cosmic Armor showings, for example. Another thing some people try to claim was Superman is strong enough to take on the World Forger without any amps because the World Forger thought he could be a threat. Again, this is far too speculative, and it's inconsistent with the narrative given Superman couldn't even get into the 6th dimension without help from Mixie and Batman, and he needed countless sun dips in order to be able to knock down the World Forger. If he could have done it at any time, he would have done it a long time ago. So no, Infinite Frontier Superman does not scale to the World Forger in my opinion, or Superman's temporary massive amp state. Also, stating Superman was above peak Crisis on Infinite Earth's Anti-Monitor is a joke. That same Anti-Monitor, while weaker before absorbing the antimatter universe and power of a bunch of magic users, outright kills Supergirl in the close match. He vastly outclasses her or Superman in his powered up state. Hence why they had to depower him and fight him together first. With the Spectre, I might add. Koi Anti-Monitor was severely injured and depowered by absorbing shadow demons which were turned into poison for him by DC heroes, being drained of energy by Dr. Light and having his armor destroyed by all the heroes combined. The remnant energy that Superman defeated was in no way equal to the peak power version that was able to destroy the multiverse. This means trying to scale Superman to the DC multiverse via this battle doesn't work. One thing that people have been kicking around also is when Superman says concepts like weight, distance, temperature, and space-time have largely lost their meaning to him while he no-sells Lex's machines. They take it as Superman completely transcending those concepts and try to equate that to completely transcending the concepts of space and time, thus making him outerversal. First off, the concept of space-time refers to Einstein's interpretation that 3 spatial and 1 temporal dimensions are fused into a 4-dimensional continuum. It's not the same as the concept of space or the concept of time, which are the mathematical axes, including the possible higher dimensionals. So this in no way is outerversal. Also, saying they largely lose their meaning means they don't have much control or effect over him, meaning he's still implying that they have some effect on him, and that he doesn't truly fully transcend them. So no, this statement does not make him outerversal or any specific tier in general. Another thing we need to address is the idea that DC has infinite mathematical dimensions. In reality, this comes from a few statements. However, upon further inspection, none of these statements actually explicitly say that DC has infinite higher or mathematical dimensions or any kind of infinitely layered, qualitatively superior hierarchy. For example, in the LaFreeze storyline, it's said that there are parallel worlds and infinite dimensions. The issue is the term dimension is never given further context as to being mathematical dimensions or having any sort of superiority. It can simply be interpreted as just alternate realities or universes. In fact, in the same story, other universes are explicitly called dimensions, so the most logical conclusion is that she's talking about other universes or realities in this context. Another commonly used one is where Ramakrishna states there are innumerable dimensions. First off, innumerable simply means a very high number, not inherently infinite. So even if we take it at face value, it's not automatically infinite dimensional, just a large amount of dimensions. But beyond this again, they never explicitly state that they're mathematical dimensions or qualitatively superior layers of reality, so it makes it speculative to assume as such in the first place. There have been other statements about infinite dimensions, however again, all these are simply referring to alternate universes or realities and have no proof of actually being infinite spatial dimensions or superior layers of reality. So what this means is that DC actually does not have any concrete proof of being infinite dimensional. Another commonly referenced scan is the Wildstorm multiverse that holds over 190 million spatial dimensions, and it's shaped like a snowflake. Although despite it now being a DC property, this is actually a separate multiverse from the DC one pictured in the Multiversity, so it doesn't scale for those trying to push it into the DC Multiversity map, such as the Ultimator, a 10-dimensional being that was going to consume Mixie and the 5th dimension, although it turns out that it was an entire story that Mixie was telling to Superman and not even real or usable to scale anything. We also see some one-offs mentioned in older issues before the multiversity map was even created, such as there being a hypothetical 11 dimensions, which was then corrected to be 12.5 dimensions, an incoherent and inconsistent statement for the current multiverse model, and for mathematics in general, since there's not half dimensions when talking about mathematics. You also have stuff like Alan Adam claiming to have higher dimensional perspectives, at least up to the 8th dimension in Final Crisis, or in the Cosmic Adventures in the 8th grade back in 2009, where Mixie and Supergirl get amped to the 10th dimension, which is pretty impressive for sure, but again, we have no idea where this fits into the current multiversal cosmology map, and it seems at first glance to contradict the current model, where the 5th dimension encompasses the map, and the 6th dimension is the peak, seemingly at the edge or outside the map. Not to mention, this amp is not the standard power of Mr. Mixie, so applying this to the 5th dimension, or even the 6th dimension, is now questionable. We also have a very explicit statement of the bleed existing on a 5th dimensional axis, as well as the 5th dimension being an actual 5-dimensional mathematical structure earlier on. However, now DC's decided to treat the 5th dimension as imagination. So how does this all fit? Well, it doesn't. There's a reason why some power scalers now are trying to separate DC cosmology into separate cosmologies for different writers, etc., instead of making it one incoherent composite. Long-running comics like DC in particular have multiple reboots, retcons, and authors, and many inconsistencies crop up in their cosmology with different authors and stories having different interpretations of how the multiverse functions. That being said, if we try to keep things consistent, a conservative estimate for the size of the multiverse map is 6-dimensional. Just like is implied by the 5th and 6th dimensional namesakes given, we can consistently say that they are currently treated as qualitatively superior, higher layers of reality to each other above the normal 4-dimensional space-time, as Mixie explains in one famous scan. If we want to mash up the composite cosmology, you could probably stick 12.5 dimensions or some other random offhand numbered dimension statement in there somewhere, although where they fit in the current map and cosmology is never explicitly expanded upon, and thus it becomes inconsistent to assume all of them are part of the normal multiverse. All in all, I'm comfortable saying the 6th dimension is at least low complex multiversal or 6th dimensional, and possibly far higher, although nothing concrete places at infinite dimensional or transcending all dimensionality in space and time, like so many people try to claim. Also, something that needs to be mentioned is that being pan-dimensional doesn't mean that you are automatically infinite dimensional or beyond dimensionality. It can simply mean that you're outside of other dimensions. Now, another important subject we have to talk about are places such as the God Sphere, which is described as a Platonic archetypal world, where the new God's true forms are living ideas by Batman. This leads people to claim that gods like Darkseid are actually true Platonic concepts, and thus inherently beyond concepts like space and time, making them outerversal. The problem with this is the God Sphere is explicitly stated to have spatial and temporal dimensions. It's said that the bullet which killed Orion's true form is fired from a higher dimensional weapon and travels back through time in the God Sphere. It's even stated that the scope of the gun is what we see looking through the higher vibratory sphere of the gods. This implies that the God Sphere is a higher dimensional realm, and that the new gods are affected by and exist in a higher dimensional realm, not a realm without any space or time. Another blatant showing of the God Sphere being higher dimensional is when Tezcatlipoca states that he and his kind exist and are able to operate in hypertime, while implying that actually makes him superior to the Olympians and new gods. Hypertime, as one would imagine, is a higher dimension of time. More specifically, it's said to be 3 time dimensions by Grant Morrison, as well as in Batman: The Return of Bruce Wayne. So these things directly contradict the notion that the sphere of the gods is truly like Plato's world of forms, as it is not without a form of space and time. The sphere of the gods, in fact, is higher dimensional. Furthermore, Platonic forms are described as perfect and good by Plato, meaning Darkseid doesn't fit the bill for a true Platonic concept anyway, as he's literally the embodiment of evil, which would make him imperfect, not good, and inherently not fit the description of Platonic forms. Overall, DC's God Sphere fails to actually accurately portray Platonic concepts, and is shown to be bound by dimensionality at some level. Therefore, saying the new gods are outerversal based on them being true Platonic concepts, or transcendent of the concepts of space and time entirely, would be inaccurate. While it is true that the God Sphere has been said to be beyond space and time at times and other such statements, this does not make it superior to all space and time and dimensionality inherently. It simply means that it's at least outside the normal four-dimensional space-time. So those types of statements without much more specific wording or context don't make them outerversal. Worth mentioning is that even the monitor sphere is stated to have time, again showing that the DC multiverse is still affected by some form of time even at that scale. Nil as well is also described as a higher dimension, implying again it's bound by a level of space and time. And now we have DC stating that the multiverse is composed of a fifth and sixth dimension, which muddles the water even more. Overall, the honest truth is the DC multiverse structure is inconsistent and hard to pin down, and it's highly speculative at best to interpret it as infinite dimensional or completely transcendent to the concepts of time and space. As far as the two characters' special abilities go, Screw Attack did fine listing their most notable ones, even if their analysis on some of them was somewhat shallow. There's no need to rehash all the abilities of both characters, beyond maybe mentioning that the Hakai technique is much more powerful than Screw Attack made it out to be. Not only can it erase beings' body and soul from history, but it can even erase characters like Dr. Mashiroto, who can rewrite themselves after being erased from the plot or narrative back into the story, essentially meaning that Hakai can even erase beings that can control the plot and rewrite themselves back into the story after being erased. So it's likely that the Hakai technique could work on Superman, since he's never stopped something at this level. The most important aspects here are to give a realistic value to both characters' speed and power, because ultimately, that is what will decide the fight. As far as Goku's concerned, we all know about Goku being able to punch out the macrocosm even in his base form after Battle of Gods, and his higher dimensional power from that alone. But that is peanuts compared to his scaling to Arale. I actually just did a video recently covering the insane power of Arale and other Dr. Slump characters, and the fact that because Goku can at least somewhat compete with her even in Super Saiyan Blue before the Tournament of Power, and Beerus is straight up stated to no-sell her gag powers, be able to erase her, and actually does erase her main antagonist, Dr. Mashiroto, who is someone even Arale couldn't put down permanently in their fights, it makes sense to say Goku is at least somewhat comparable to Arale, and Beerus straight up scales above her and other Dr. Slump characters. Worth noting is that in the anime, Jiren is actually implied to be stronger than Beerus at the time, since it said Belmod beat Beerus in an arm wrestling contest, and Jiren is stronger than Belmod. Goku is implied to have reached or surpassed Beerus as well when he unlocked Mastered Ultra Instinct against Jiren, and forced him to use not only his full power but go beyond it. Thus, between his further transformations, such as Kaioken and Ultra Instinct, as well as his multiple limit breaks in the Tournament of Power, Goku should be well above Arale as well at this point. As I outlined in my previous video, Arale exists beyond the narrative and pages of Dr. Slump and Dragon Ball. She exists in endless higher layers of reality simultaneously, as steam where she is holding herself on a page, which is holding itself on another page ad infinitum, creating an infinite chain of reality fiction layers. When applying the fact that even the normal Dragon Ball cosmology includes the subspace, we get some crazy scaling. First off, the subspace that I discussed in detail during my Dragon Ball cosmology video is described by there being no concepts of time or space and transcending time itself, while still being able to hold dimensional places and people such as Seguro space and the Room of Spirit and Time. This would likely fall under the category of what many power scalers refer to as an outerversal place, based on it transcending not just time and space, but the very concepts of time and space, which would inherently include all higher dimensional structures. And with no contradictions to its implied outerversal nature, it's a pretty solid standard to say the subspace is outerversal, while the blank pages where all Dragon Ball and Dr. Slump are written on transcend even this outerversal realm in an infinite hierarchy of outerversal reality fiction transcendences, making Arale and by extension Goku outerversal plus. However, let's say you don't agree with the subspace qualifying as an outerversal structure. Even if you said that the Dragon Ball and Dr. Slump cosmology below the blank pages is only 4D, it would still result in an infinitely layered hierarchy beyond that, which some people call high hyperversal as a lowball. As far as speed, like I outlined in my previous video, Arale can run back and forward through time, Senbei can catch up to and react to time-traveling time machines, and in reality actually exists on a higher layer of reality that views the entire story and all history simultaneously and can act at any points in time and space that she wants, whenever she wants, even multiple points simultaneously, giving her way beyond baseline immeasurable speed of simply traveling back and forth through time. Beyond this, of course, we have things like Goku himself being able to battle an omnipresent infinite Zamasu that fused with Trunks' timeline, being able to counter his time skip and fight while Hit traveled into the future, and keeping up with Jiren, who is described as having power that transcends time and makes time have no meaning. Goku can also send his attacks across infinite distances and alternate space-times, like when his attacks were able to reach the world of the Kais from Earth during the Battle of God's Arc. Goku can also cross infinite distances and alternate space-times in moments, like when he flew across the other world to fight Cell and Frieza during the Pikkon arc back in Z, or when he and Beerus could send their attacks across the entire Universe 7 macrocosm in seconds. Clearly, Goku has high-end immeasurable speed for his feats in scaling to a Raleigh. Now let's get into Superman's power. As I said, scaling him to the World Forger or Anti-Monitor is, in my opinion, a little bit speculative and dishonest, and takes the feat's death battle referenced out of context. He normally can't perform them, and they don't scale as far as I'm concerned. That would be like me scaling Vegeta or Universe Tree Amp Goku to standard Goku. No, we need some actual blatant Superman feats / scaling. First things first are he is inconsistent. Some stories he caps out at moon level, some at planet level, some at solar system level, and others he reaches into universe level and even low multiverse levels and beyond. His limits are all over the place. But he does have them, as shown multiple times. Hell, there's even a guide stating directly that he has limits. That being said, for the sake of the battle here, we'll use a high-end interpretation and put him at his best for this standard state. We have feats like Superman shattering and rewriting timelines when exchanging blows with his pre-crisis self. We have Superman pushing himself through the Big Bang and destroying an object that can withstand the same conditions. Superman also separates apart two realities and even defeats a character called Otora.io, a god who creates his own multiverse out of the stories that he creates, and who could destroy them all whenever he wishes. Superman and Jackson Almighty also set the DC multiverse back to normal when battling in the pre-crisis era, after the Time Trapper had altered the time stream, causing the multiverse to only have bad realities. Superman has also defeated powerful foes such as Darkseid, who has been shown to have reality warping powers, view normal timelines as bubble universes from the God Sphere, and so on and so forth. Albeit, Superman generally fights avatars of Darkseid, which have varying levels of power. Overall, Infinite Frontier Superman has proven that during his tenure through his multiple incarnations, he can at his peak levels defeat multiverse-level foes under his own power and affect multiple realities with a single punch, clearly putting him at least low multiverse levels of power. Now I will say, if we want to highball Superman and say that because he said he is stronger than ever before, that he scales above the amp he got when he beat the World Forger and in his Cosmic Armor incarnation, then he should scale to the 6th dimension and above the Monitor Sphere. As discussed earlier, the 6th dimension is at least 6-dimensional, or low complex multiversal as some people call it, and it could potentially be much higher with the various numbered dimensions that have been given throughout DC's history. You could interpret some infinite dimension statements as infinite mathematical dimensions, and say he breaks into high hyperversal territory for scaling to the structure via the World Forger feat, although that is speculative and somewhat inconsistent with current cosmology. All that being said, if we interpret the multiverse to have infinite mathematical dimensions, and not just infinite universes and realities with some higher dimensions, you could highball the 6th dimension, which is at the top of it all, as being infinite dimensional. So if we're scaling Cosmic Armor and World Forger amped Superman to Infinite Frontier Superman, you could make an argument for him being up to infinite dimensional as well. Now as far as speed goes, it's pretty straightforward. Even though Superman's top speed is inconsistent, various Supermen can fly through time, albeit usually through acceleration past light speeds. They can also move in places without normal time and space, like the Phantom Zone, and keep up with opponents on similar levels. If you use things like Cosmic Armor Superman for scaling as well, you could argue that his perspective of time and space is such that he can view it from a higher plane, seeing the story and history all simultaneously. So clearly at his peak, Superman does have immeasurable speed beyond linear time, and possibly even higher dimensional perspectives from Cosmic Armor and other such incarnations.
Fight!
So in summary, even lowballed and ignoring the subspace by scaling to Raleigh, Goku has infinite dimensional levels of power, and high-end immeasurable speed beyond linear time, while his reasonable high-end using the subspace places him at Outerversal Plus levels beyond the concepts of space and time. Goku still has an advantage in raw skill and is comparable to Superman's experience based on his own practical experience being equal to thousands of years with King Kai. Infinite Frontier Superman is at least low multiverse levels in power, with clear immeasurable speed, and if we include things like Cosmic Armor Superman and the amp that he got when he fought the World Forger, then he could be argued to be at least 6-dimensional and possibly as high as infinite dimensional, with even higher levels of immeasurable speed than before. Superman clearly still takes the win in the stamina department. However, the experience isn't as cut and dry, since Goku has the equivalent of thousands of years of experience, so I would have to give experience in raw. For those keeping tabs, this essentially means in speed, Goku's probably winning given he is way beyond baseline immeasurable speed via scaling. Although if you throw in Cosmic Armor and World Forger into the mix, you could argue that it's closer. In power, Goku wins outright if we don't scale Superman to his one-off power-ups like Cosmic Armor Superman and the World Forger amp. If we do scale to Cosmic Armor and the World Forger amp, Goku still likely wins. Using a 6-dimensional or any finite dimensional rating for Superman results in Goku winning this matchup in power. However, even if you lowball Goku to high hyperversal and highball Superman to high hyperversal, it's a draw, which I personally don't think is reasonable to do, given it would be showing clear favoritism towards one character over the other. Overall, Goku gets the win in power. For experience, it's actually a draw. Superman has thousands of years of experience in war, while Goku has the equivalent of thousands of years of training with King Kai for the Saiyans alone. Their practical experience is actually similar. For skill, again, Goku wins. He's a battle genius who has trained with the best mentors in the multiverse, and is constantly honing his skills. Although it should be noted, Superman's no slouch and is skilled in many martial arts in his own right. However, he just doesn't train consistently to keep sharp and improve like Goku. For powers, Goku Sakai could destroy Dr. Slump characters that can regenerate from narrative erasure. It's unlikely Superman would survive that. Also, Dimensional Domain will instantly make Superman exhausted and force him into a stamina break every time he acts or is hit. This would immobilize him and pretty much give Goku free reign to do what he wants. So if we use the pseudo-composite Goku from Screw Attack, while Superman does have an amazing amount of skills, they don't come close to trumping that kind of stuff, which can instantly immobilize and completely erase the opponent. So Goku takes the powers category in that scenario. However, I would argue that sticking with just the anime like we're doing here, and taking those skills away from Goku as they don't appear in the anime, Superman actually has a bigger and better move pool in this case. So I give Superman the category of powers if we're strictly using the Dragon Ball Super anime Goku versus Infinite Frontier Superman. At the end of the day, post-Tournament of Power anime Goku takes power, speed, and skill categories, while Infinite Frontier Superman takes the special powers category and ties with Goku in the experience category. So there you have it. Goku takes the most categories, and in all honesty, his power for most interpretations is so much larger, being infinite layers of reality above Superman's, that he's probably going to one-shot in the battle rather easily with superior speed and skill backing him up. This also applies to all versions of Superman that he's scaling to. Dragon Ball Super anime Goku likely defeats pre-Crisis Superman, post-Crisis Superman, New 52 Superman, Rebirth Superman, and whether you scale Infinite Frontier Superman to Cosmic Armor Superman and the amp that defeated the World Forger or not, and whether you scale Superman to Cosmic Armor and the amp that he got to defeat the World Forger or not, Goku defeats them as well. So in the end, Dragon Ball Super Anime Goku wins against Infinite Frontier Superman and any version of Superman.